gamey. But that said, Seton, Motley, president of Less Government, here to break down the primaries that took place last night and some other things as well. Welcome, Seton.
If I may continue your analogy, it's amazing how many left-handers they have.
Tell me, Seton, your thoughts on what was the race to watch, and are we speaking to our headquarters in Mississippi?
Well, I think the Mississippi one's a good one. I think in a runoff where turnout will be down, I think that favors the challenger over Thad Cochran, which is a good thing in my estimation. But I think the key here is I'm very much looking forward to the Democrats working to elect the first woman from Iowa to Congress, and that's Joni Ernst. Because of the war on women, she's running against just another white guy. So I'm very much looking forward to the Democrats working to help elect Joni Ernst in the fall.
And she kicked off her campaign with quite an ad, didn't she? Recap that one for us.
That was an ad where she said, "I grew up castrating hogs, so I know how to cut pork when I get to Washington." And that put her on the map. I mean, that was one of those transformational ads where you go from "Who's that?" to "I want to know who that is."
Tell me.
And that was that ad. And then she ended up getting like 60% of the vote, which it was a runaway win. And she is that rare candidate that had establishment Mitt Romney and Marco Rubio both campaigning for.
And her opponent is a man who has said some things that really speak to the fact that he's part of the establishment crowd.
A little too much D.C., not enough Iowa. Yeah, he said we could end up, horrors, heaven forfend, we could end up with a farmer as the head of the Judiciary Committee in Chuck Grassley. One, Chuck Grassley is an institution in Iowa, and two, you don't want to slam farmers in Iowa. I'm just saying. The reason ethanol has been astride us like a colossus for 3 decades is, one, there's a bunch of farming in Iowa that grows corn, and two, it's first in the presidential process. So yeah, slamming Bruce Braley slamming Chuck Grassley for being a farmer in Iowa is like it's like someone in Chicago slamming Rahm Emanuel for being a thug.
Sometimes I wish I'd be prepared for these, but some of these are just coming up because of the fruit of the discussion, folks, and that's why I'm going to giggle a little, and I don't mind. Tell me, Seton, oh, and incidentally, those of you that support ethanol, I know you're going to get the emails. I get your emails, and I appreciate you listening, and I love you. Just tell me why you need mandates and subsidies. Okay.
Well, not only is it bad for your engine, not only does it burn 1.5 gallons of gasoline to make 1 gallon of ethanol, but now it's been proven that it's actually worse for the environment than regular gasoline. So if it's worse for the environment, it burns more fuel than it creates. Why are we subsidizing it?
Well, it goes to the overall argument or discussion that we've had, because I don't mind the people who work in the industry, and I understand their passion. And when you're working and receiving a fund and you believe in it and all that, I understand the frustration you feel when I say, please stop, because what Seton has spoken to and written about eloquently, and what we've learned overall, as well as the idea that, I mean, this is where I go against President Bush. There are a lot of things I love President. You know, I'm a Bush lover. But I was like, come on now, grow our way out of energy dependence. No, let's drill our way and let's get real. That all said.
And now frack our way, which is why we're having this revolution now.
Yeah, it's the only thing that saves President Obama, yet he advanced these EPA regulations. I know we didn't plan to talk about that, but your background is talking about the green energy movement and identifying the new foundation's failure, new foundation being the quote-unquote from President Obama's new foundation of the economy's failure. So feel free to chime in on the new regs.
Well, it's just, look, what's really annoying is, you know, he is trying to transform us into a European socialist democracy, Meanwhile, the European socialist democracies spent all of the 2000s wasting hundreds of billions of dollars on green energy. And by 2008, when Obama was elected, they were starting to come to the realization that it was a pig in a poke. It was a terrible idea. They'd wasted all this money. They'd gotten little or no energy out of it. And they were giving up the ghost just as Barack Obama was walking in the front door of the White House and signing a stimulus bill that had $80 billion for green energy in it. And 80% of that money went to Obama donors. And I've never done the research, but I would love to do the research. How many of those companies that were started by Obama donors were started between like 2006 and 2009, where they just set them up to be a Hoover vacuum of government money once Obama got elected? Because these things are a joke. Look, they're neither green nor energy. Solar panels produce virtually no energy, and after 20 years, or 15 or 20 years, they're nuclear waste. You have to handle the dead solar panel like nuclear waste. Wind power, every wind farm gets a waiver. I think it was Chevron, got fined $6 million for killing 2 bald eagles. Every wind farm gets a waiver from the Endangered Species Act because they're bird Cuisinarts. I mean, hundreds of birds fly into these wind farms to their doom. And so in order to get them up and running, the government gives them a waiver. Meanwhile, they're finding a daylights out of, it was Chevron or Exxon, I can't remember, for 2 birds. Yes. And of course, the wind energy, you have to build a wind farm the size of Utah to power a 50-watt bulb. So none of this works. His claim that this will spur innovation, no. I think we've discussed one of the golden rules of life. If it's a good idea, you don't need government money. No one subsidizes ice cream because it's a good idea. If green energy were a good idea, you wouldn't need government money. There'd be private money rushing to invest in it. But it's not a good idea, so there is no private money, so the government money is artificially creating this pseudo-industry that collapses as soon as the government money goes away.
If I ever can get some leftists to come on the show, I'm going to ask them, why do they hate birds? It's my line where, why do you hate children? Why do you hate birds?
Yes.
Why? I have a feeling that we're going to hear that bird Cuisinart. Oh, wow. Bravo. Tell me this, Ted Cruz, I'd like to point out and understand, as a talk show host, it's tough for me not to claim credit myself and tell you how great I am. But Seton Motley pointed out that Ted Cruz was right. We agreed on that regarding the filibuster, quasi or otherwise, regarding Obamacare. And he said, wait till November next year because this is going to be a winner for the man. Speaking of that man, and that's what he pointed out when nobody else was saying it. So I want you to realize Seton Motley ahead of the game on these things. Now, let's go to the statement by Ted Cruz today about free speech and what the Democrats in the Senate, not about R's or D's, about accountability, are trying to do to the First Amendment. Cut number 5. Here comes Teddy. Roll it.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Ted Kennedy and Russ Feingold. And where are the liberals today? Why is there not a liberal standing here defending the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment? Mr. Chairman, 42 Democrats have signed their name to a constitutional amendment that would give Congress the power to muzzle Planned Parenthood and the national right to life. 42 Democrats have signed their name to giving Congress the right to muzzle the Sierra Club, to muzzle the National Rifle Association and the Brady Center on Handgun Violence, to muzzle Michael Moore and Dinesh D'Souza, to muzzle the Teamsters and the National Education Association, to muzzle the NAACP, to muzzle the Anti-Defamation League, to muzzle pastors and priests and rabbis who organize their parishioners to be involved in politics. Today, the American people should be angry about this. And, Mr. Chairman, the senators who put their name to this should be embarrassed that they have signed up for repealing the free speech amendments of the First Amendment.
So, Seton, what on earth are the Democrats doing to have Ted Cruz stand up and say, I agree with Feingold?
They're basically trying to repeal the free speech portion of the First Amendment. Now, I want to say a couple things. One, I would like to give the Democrats credit for actually trying to amend the Constitution when they want to change the Constitution, rather than simply passing a law and pretending that amends the Constitution. So, in that sense, they're at least following the correct process. The left always says the Constitution is a living, breathing document, and I say yes. And the respiratory system is the amendment process. You can't just change it by law. You certainly can't change it by signing statement, Mr. President. Second of all, I would like to take some umbrage with what Ted Cruz said.
Okay.
Do you really think that if it actually came to be, and I don't think it will, because the constitutional amendment of this sort is not going to pass the constitutional amendment process, do you think that the federal government would equally silence the Sierra Club and the National Rifle Association? The IRS scandal proves that that would not be the case. So they would not go after the Sierra Club. They would not go after Planned Parenthood. They would only go after National Review. They would only go National Right to Life. So that's the only nit I would pick with Ted Cruz. Although I do not think it is an insignificant nit.
And what he would maybe come back with. Crane Durham speaking up for Ted Cruz. What's your deal, man? Here it is. There's strategery here of making the overall point, but well taken in practice, because they oftentimes do speak to the general or all, protecting us all from those evil Koch brothers. Is that what the Democrats are counting on? Us to hate the Koch brothers so much that we lose our appreciation and respect for our freedom of speech?
Well, if everyone could see, that's part of the combo. They were certainly setting the table for this kind of amendment or law with the Koch brothers stuff. But if everyone in America could see it, of course, the Jurassic press will not play it. But if they could see Harry Reid excoriating the Koch brothers, and then in the same sentence defending Sheldon Adelson throwing his billions in behind the political process, because he means well, and therefore he's not like the Koch brothers. He's absurd, and it just demonstrates the absurdity of all this. Look, I think an important thing when it comes to campaign finance is money chases ideas. It's not the other way around. I wasn't a leftist until someone wrote me a check, and then all of a sudden I was a conservative. That's not how it works. But, Sheldon Adelson supports people that are saying things he likes. The Koch brothers support people that they like what they're saying. I think the only demonstration we can see where money sways policy is Tom Steyer, the billionaire environmentalist, who, by the way, made a lot of his money on coal and oil, got a all-night floor session from Harry Reid, a dog and pony show that meant nothing except as a visual aid for Tom Steyer. And now we have Barack Obama throwing the unions under the bus, first by blocking the Keystone Pipeline, and now with his ridiculous carbon regulations, which are also unconstitutional. And I think 8 unions just signed a letter to Obama saying this is unbelievably pernicious and it shouldn't happen. But he's doing all this so that Tom Steyer will give $50 million to Democrats. So I'm not saying Obama wasn't an environmentalist nut before this, but he's certainly preferring that policy predicated on Tom Steyer's millions at the expense of, A, a key constituency for Democrats, and B, several Democrats in energy-producing states, and C, the general public and the economy at large.
Final question, and I'm going to give you less than 20 seconds as always, Seton. My apologies. But here it is. Here it is. If you were to write the headline of going into November, what November looks like election-wise, tell me, what would that headline be?
Jobs in the economy and all the Obama policies and the Democrat policies that are damaging it.
Okay. And bottom line, when we see this, are we seeing not only an anti-Obama or rejection of his policies in that sense, but also establishment? That's another part of it, being part of the problem?
Yes, because the reason Congress is at 11% is because neither party is doing anything to stop what's going on.
Gotcha. Seton, we actually now have a close to say you are the president of Less Government and an outstanding writer, commentator, friend of the show. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it. Have a great week.
You too. Brain Durham's Nothing But Truth. Ben Johnson